Have you ever met someone who felt instantly familiar, like you've known them forever? A connection so intense, it pulls you in like a magnet, yet leaves you emotionally exhausted? That might not be coincidence. According to Buddhist teachings, it could be karma at work. In today's talk, we'll explore signs you're in a karmic relationship, what that really means in the Buddhist view, and how to find peace and clarity, even in the midst of chaos. Let's begin with awareness, not blame. In Buddhism, everything arises from causes and conditions, including love. When you meet someone and feel an instant bond, it's easy to assume it's fate or chemistry. But often, what's really unfolding is karma. Not in the popular sense of punishment or reward, but karma as in energy left unfinished. A karmic relationship is not necessarily romantic, though it often is. It's a connection born from past actions, whether those actions were loving, harmful, or both. That's why these relationships feel so intense. There's a pull, a familiarity, a feeling of, I've been here before. And maybe you have. According to Buddhist teachings, our current life is shaped by countless lives before it. When a person reappears in your world and stirs something deep inside you, joy, longing, pain, fear, that's a karmic echo. It's not about destiny leading you to happiness. It's about karma giving you a chance to awaken. These connections aren't inherently bad or good. They're mirrors. They reflect back what's hidden in you, the wounds you carry, the attachments you cling to, the patterns you've repeated again and again. You don't meet them by accident. You meet them because something needs to come full circle. Sometimes that means working through the pain. Sometimes it means learning to let go. But always, a karmic relationship comes with a purpose. From the Buddhist view, love itself is not the problem. The issue is how we love, with craving, with fear, with the need to possess or be completed. A karmic relationship forces you to confront all of that. It's not about romance. It's about transformation. You may not get the outcome you hoped for, but you'll get the lesson your soul needs. And that, in the end, is the kind of love that leads you closer to liberation. So how do you recognize if you're in a karmic relationship? One of the clearest signs is an intense attraction that feels almost uncontrollable. It's not just about physical chemistry, it's deeper, almost spiritual. You feel drawn to this person as if something bigger than both of you is pulling the strings. You can't explain it, but you feel it. It's immediate, magnetic, and strangely familiar, like meeting someone you've known for lifetimes. And yet, with all that intensity, there's also instability. The relationship feels like a roller coaster, passionate highs followed by emotional crashes. One moment you're inseparable, the next you're in conflict. You might feel exhausted, confused, even emotionally raw, but no matter how volatile things get, you keep going back. That's because karmic relationships often carry unresolved emotions from the past. You're not just dealing with this life. You're bumping into the karma of other lives too. In Buddhism, this kind of connection isn't seen as fate in a romantic sense. It's seen as an opportunity. That pull you feel, it's not necessarily love. It might be unfinished business. That intensity may not mean you're meant to be together forever. It might mean you have something to work through, something to learn, or something to release. Karma isn't binding you to this person forever. It's showing you a mirror, asking you to wake up. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering. When we crave connection without awareness, we get lost. When we grasp for someone to complete us, to fix our pain, we miss the point. Karmic relationships are intense because they bring up what's hidden. They activate the unhealed parts of you. That's why they can feel like love and pain all at once. If you're experiencing this kind of connection, don't judge yourself. And don't blame the other person either. Just begin to see clearly. Ask yourself, why am I so drawn to this? What keeps me here despite the chaos? What patterns are being revealed? The more you bring mindful attention to the relationship, the more its karmic lessons begin to unfold. And in that unfolding, transformation becomes possible. Another powerful sign you're in a karmic relationship is that painful patterns keep repeating. You might notice the same arguments coming up again and again, the same feelings of abandonment, the same cycles of miscommunication, mistrust, or emotional disconnection. No matter how much you try to fix things, it feels like you're stuck in a loop, like you're living the same scene over and over, just with different words. From a Buddhist perspective, this repetition isn't random, it's karma in motion. The relationship is triggering old seeds, both from this life and previous ones. These seeds, called vasanas, are deep emotional imprints stored in the mind. When the right conditions appear, such as the presence of this particular person, those seeds ripen. You find yourself reacting, feeling, and hurting in familiar ways. Not because you're weak or broken, but because the karma is ripe for transformation. This is where suffering becomes a teacher. These recurring patterns are not there to punish you. They're showing you what's still unresolved. And if you're willing to look honestly, you'll start to see that the other person isn't the source of your pain, they're the mirror. They're reflecting back the fears, wounds, and beliefs you carry inside. The same themes will follow you into your next relationship if they're not met with awareness now. Many people think that love should be smooth and effortless. But karmic love rarely is. It asks for something deeper, it asks you to grow. It asks you to stop blaming and start looking within. When you feel like you've hit the same wall for the 10th time, that's not failure. That's the moment of choice. Will you react the same way? Or will you pause, reflect, and shift your response? Buddhism teaches that nothing changes until the mind changes. And karmic relationships, for all their turmoil, can be the exact ground where inner change becomes possible. You don't break the cycle by fixing the other person. You break it by becoming conscious of your part in the dance. That's when the suffering begins to serve a higher purpose. That's when karma starts to clear. And sometimes, that's when the relationship transforms too. Or ends peacefully, with wisdom and compassion. Either way, you move forward lighter, because you've learned what you came here to learn. Sometimes the most confusing part of a karmic relationship is knowing deep down that it isn't healthy, and yet feeling completely unable to walk away. Even when you recognize the pain, even when you admit to yourself that the relationship isn't working, something in you keeps holding on. You might leave and come back. Over and over. You might try to create distance, only to find yourself emotionally pulled right back in. It feels like there's an invisible thread tying you to this person, even when all logic says it's time to let go. This powerful pull is often misunderstood. It's easy to mistake it for true love, or to believe that staying is part of some higher spiritual test. But from a Buddhist point of view, what you're feeling may not be love, it may be karmic attachment. There is energy between you and this person that hasn't yet resolved. That energy seeks completion, not always continuation. The longing to stay often comes from a place of craving, or from a deep-rooted belief that you owe this person something, or that you're responsible for their healing. But healing someone else is not your karmic duty. Your true responsibility is to wake up to your own mind, to see clearly what's driving your decisions. Often, the inability to leave is connected to fear of being alone, fear of failure, fear of repeating the past, or it comes from guilt, from stories you've told yourself about being the one who holds everything together. In Buddhism, we're invited to examine these mental formations with compassion and mindfulness, not judgment. The idea is not to shame ourselves, but to become free. You don't need to force yourself out of the relationship before you're ready. But you can begin the process of entangling with awareness. Start by asking, what do I believe I'll lose if I walk away? What do I think I'm gaining by staying? And most importantly, what part of me is still looking for healing through this connection? Clarity doesn't always come overnight, but the more you turn inward and understand the karma at play, the less power that pull has over you. You may still feel connected, but not controlled. You may still care, but from a place of peace rather than entanglement. That shift is where freedom begins. And in that freedom, you create space for a different kind of love, one rooted not in karma, but in conscious choice. Chad GPT Da Noi. That invisible thread, the one that keeps you tied to someone even when you know the relationship isn't right, often carries a heavy emotional weight. It can feel like a debt, like you owe this person something you can't quite name. Maybe they were there for you at a hard time. Maybe they hurt you deeply. And part of you is still waiting for them to make it right. Or maybe you feel you need to make things right for them. That unspoken emotional burden is one of the strongest signs of a karmic relationship. From a Buddhist lens, this feeling of owing each other is the residue of past karma. It doesn't always come from this life. You may have crossed paths in other lives, as partners, siblings, even enemies, and the energy of those interactions still lingers. In some lives, you may have taken more than you gave. In others, you may have caused harm or been harmed. When those karmic impressions remain unresolved, they follow you into this life. That's why you can meet someone and feel an immediate emotional intensity, one that feels deeper than any history you've had in this lifetime could explain. And while it may seem romantic or noble to stay and make it right, the Dharma teaches us something different. It teaches us that karma is not cleared by staying stuck in pain, but by waking up to it. Holding onto someone out of guilt or obligation only creates more entanglement. True karmic resolution doesn't require staying in the relationship forever. It requires seeing clearly, acting wisely, and releasing the mental stories that keep you bound. This is where compassion becomes essential. You don't need to hate or blame the person. In fact, it's better if you don't. You can honor what you shared without clinging to it. You can forgive without forgetting. You can feel gratitude for the lesson, even if the experience was painful. That's how karmic weight becomes light. That's how emotional debt dissolves. The Buddha never said relationships should be easy, but he did say liberation is possible. And liberation doesn't mean abandoning people. It means freeing yourself from the illusions and attachments that keep you suffering. So if you feel like you owe someone your time, your love, your energy, pause, reflect, ask, am I doing this from love or from fear? From freedom or from bondage? Because the moment you bring mindfulness to that emotional weight, something shifts. You stop repeating the old karmic dance. You step into something new, a path guided not by the past, but by wisdom, clarity, and compassion. And that's where true healing begins. Chad GPT Da Noi. Something interesting often happens after a karmic relationship ends. At first, there's pain, deep, raw, and consuming. You might feel like a part of you has been ripped away. The world becomes quiet, but not in a peaceful way, more like an eerie stillness after a storm. And yet, in that silence, something begins to stir. Clarity, awareness, the beginning of transformation. This is one of the most telling signs that your connection was karmic. It leaves you forever changed. Not just in how you view relationships, but in how you understand yourself. You begin to ask different questions. Not, why did they do this to me? But, what was I meant to see through this experience? That shift, from blame to self-inquiry, is a turning point. It means the karma is no longer just cycling through you unconsciously. You're now witnessing it, learning from it, possibly even releasing it. Many people describe this post-relationship period as a kind of spiritual awakening. You might begin meditating, studying Buddhism, journaling, seeking therapy, or spending time in nature. These are not just coping mechanisms, they're signs that the pain has cracked something open. That crack, painful as it is, lets the light in. As the Buddha taught, suffering can be the doorway to insight, if met with mindfulness. The truth is, karmic relationships often exist to push us into this kind of awakening. They hold up a mirror we can't ignore. And once we've seen what's been hiding inside us, our fears, attachments, expectations, we can't unsee it. The relationship may have ended, but the journey has only just begun. It's important to honor this phase. Don't rush it. Don't try to force healing or pretend to be over it too soon. Sit with the grief. Let it speak. It holds wisdom. As it softens, you may begin to feel something else rising, a quiet strength, a deeper understanding of who you are, a clearer sense of what you truly need and value. You might never get closure from the other person, but that's okay. In Buddhism, closure isn't something others give us, it's something we find within. When you've fully met the lesson, the pull of the past begins to fade. What once felt like a karmic knot begins to loosen, and in its place grows something spacious and still. That stillness is not emptiness. It's peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you've walked through fire and emerged more awake. And maybe, just maybe, that was the whole point. When you begin to emerge from the pain of a karmic relationship, something else often awakens, a desire to understand not just the experience itself, but the deeper forces behind it. That's where the Buddhist view of karma and relationships offers profound insight. In this tradition, love is not random, neither is suffering. Everything we encounter is the result of causes and conditions, stretching across lifetimes. What we call fate is often just karma we've forgotten. The Buddha taught that all relationships arise from dependent origination. Nothing stands alone. And nothing happens in isolation. If someone enters your life in a powerful way, it's not because the universe is playing a game. It's because, at some point in your stream of consciousness, a karmic seed was planted. That seed ripened into a moment of connection. And while it may feel sudden or even magical, it's actually part of a long unfolding. Karmic relationships often come with a strong emotional charge because they're charged with history, not just shared experiences in this life, but unseen patterns from others. These relationships stir deep responses because they carry energy from unfinished stories. And that energy doesn't just want comfort, it wants clarity. It wants to be seen, felt, and released. But here's something important the Buddha pointed out. Karma is not fixed. It's not a punishment system. It's dynamic, always shifting based on our awareness. That means even if a relationship begins from karmic tension, how we meet it now, how we respond, choose, and grow, can change the outcome. Karma is not about staying stuck in cycles. It's about having the courage to wake up inside them. That's why mindfulness is so powerful in love. When we bring awareness into our relationships, we stop reacting from old wounds and start responding from wisdom. We begin to notice when our actions are rooted in fear or craving. And we soften. We begin to see the other person not as a source of blame, but as a co-traveler through karmic terrain. And we start to take responsibility, not just for our past, but for the present we are shaping. In this way, relationships become part of the spiritual path, even the difficult ones, especially the difficult ones, because they teach us where we are still asleep, still clinging, still looking for someone else to give us what only clarity can. And as that clarity deepens, so does our capacity to love, not just others, but ourselves, in a more truthful and liberating way. ChatGPT Da Noi. Understanding the karmic nature of a relationship is only part of the journey. The deeper path is learning how to move forward, how to transform the energy, heal what's been stirred up, and make peace with what cannot be changed. In Buddhism, This process isn't about forgetting the past or pretending it didn't matter. It's about releasing the grip that the past has on your present. It's about meeting your experience with clarity, compassion, and intention. Healing from a karmic relationship doesn't always mean cutting someone out of your life. It might mean reimagining the relationship from a new level of consciousness. Or it might mean letting it go entirely, with love. What matters most is that you're no longer clinging to the pain or the hope that they will save you. You no longer need the story to continue. You've seen what it came to show you. And now you're ready to walk a freer path. That freedom doesn't come from closure in the way we usually think of it. It doesn't come from a perfect conversation or a clean goodbye. It comes from within. It comes from choosing to bless the past for its lessons and to stop feeding the energy of resentment, guilt, or longing. It comes from realizing that nothing karmic can truly bind you if you meet it with awareness. The Buddha taught that suffering ends when craving ends. And in relationships, craving often shows up as the need to be needed, the need to fix, the need to feel complete through another. As you begin to release these patterns, you make space for something else. Love without attachment, compassion without control, connection without clinging. That's not just spiritual talk. It's the actual freedom that arises when karma dissolves. You may find yourself feeling lighter. You may notice that the same triggers no longer catch you. You may finally be able to wish them well without expecting anything in return. That's how you know the karma has been worked through, not because everything feels perfect, but because you're no longer caught in the same loops. You've stepped out of the storm and into your center. And from that center, a new kind of relationship becomes possible. One that doesn't pull you off your path, but supports it. One that doesn't stir old wounds, but reflects your wholeness back to you. Whether that comes soon or far in the future isn't the point. What matters is that you've cleared the space for it by doing the deeper work. So if you've loved someone deeply, lost them painfully, and grown because of it, know this: it wasn't wasted. It was sacred. It was your soul remembering itself. And now, you walk forward not with bitterness, but with grace, not with karma repeating, but with wisdom unfolding.